We're grateful that you have joined us. Thank you so much. Right, finally, we were able to get hold of Prof. Prof, thank you for joining. We know you had a couple of issues joining us, but we're glad that you finally made it. Professor Joy Ngozi Ezelu, OON, is the Dean of Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, Nsukka. She's also the former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking, as well as the founder of WACO, TAMA, SARC. Prof will tell us what those acronyms mean because I don't have it. So, Ma, we're so glad to have you. Please take your presentation, Ma. Now, Ma. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I guess I may have to actually put up my video at some point to make sure I stay connected because I've been in a long meeting, part of admin responsibility, and my battery, I didn't get opportunity to get it recharged. But thank you so much, and I want to thank FIDA for putting up this wonderful program. We have been looking since COVID. We've looked at issues around violence against women or sexual and gender-based violence. Many groups have looked at it. Service providers have looked at it. What is new? What is the added value? I think the added value in what is happening today is also to begin looking at the root causes and finding practical solution. And it has been, it's a very rich panel, and I was happy that I met the last speaker also talk about a number of issues, bringing in interdisciplinary approach, bringing in psychiatric, bringing in other people to have other perspective on this problem. Yes, we are no longer in doubt whether there is an surge. I think is our leave that could tell you, because one of the things I did this period, especially during the lockdown, was to volunteer to handle one of the hotlines of WACOL. WACOL is Women's Aid Collective, and TAMASAC is Tama Sexual Assault Referral Center. And I founded both organizations. And I volunteered to take calls. So, and I didn't, in fact, I couldn't have anticipated how overwhelming that would be, and how my life have been so consumed that throughout this COVID, I've not even had more than 4 hours sleep a day. For example, between April and June 30th at WACOL, we handled 227 cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And I tell you the breakdown. For example, rape, defilement, and incest was 26. Denial of inheritance, harmful practices, 5. Physical and emotional assaults, abuses, including battery, 97. Trafficking, child trafficking, 2. Early and forced marriage, 2. Forceful ejection and abandonment, 24. Discrimination on grounds of sex, 3. Custody and maintenance matter, 56. A total of, in April, we had 81 cases. In May, we had 74, and in June, 72. Total of 227. And I'm talking about, remember, it's a lockdown, so there are a lot of things that affect accessibility. We had also digitally enabled services, but we're talking about not cases that were just referred, or these are cases that were actually handled, that we followed up, that came to us, and that we are working on. We must have received more than 500 calls, but these are the actual cases that we worked on. So one start wondering, and for all the reasons I wouldn't repeat, because I know a lot of people are lined up to speak what the psychiatrists have said in terms of the stress that happened during the lockdown, and the fact that people agitated is something disruptive. Nobody knew it will happen. And then within that, of course, people have different ways of expressing frustration. It could be part of it, but I don't think it gives even actually a picture of it, because we can try to, there is a problem or something that we have to avoid, falling into when you talk about domestic violence and you begin to look at the root causes. We should separate things that through socialization have become normalized, that especially when it comes to expression of power and violence. We can, of course, make excuse if a mad person, somebody who is mentally deranged or openly mad, begin to exhibit violence act. People can say this person is mad, that's why he or she is behaving this way. So that violence expression is because of the mental health of the person. So that's acceptable. And if somebody is on drugs and you can say, oh, he's under influence. Even in law, we know that in terms of defenses, that we can say insanity, even though it will not absolve you, but it can mitigate the hardship or suspend. You may be guilty, but say guilty, but on ground of insanity, of course. And then there are different things. So we know that those can be root causes, and some people are actually on drugs. Alcohol can also influence violence. These are traditionally known root causes. And in that root, looking at root causes, which are the fundamental problem, is about how the society construe and treat the female gender. It's about social norms. It's about patriarchy and patriarchal system. It's about the conceptualization of the private public space dichotomy. It's about a woman's role. How is it conceived? Is it conceived as being reproductive or productive? And then when you tend to cross over to what is not socially determined, then you already, that will incur the wrath of people, whether it's your husband or father or other siblings. The other day we had a young lady beaten up by the brother, so she was so injured. And then you wonder what was her offense. She didn't cook. Of course, she's female. I don't think she will have beaten up even any man like that. So because she's seated there, he's seated, and then he thinks that her role is cooking. And then the mother is watching, and then she suffers this type of harm. So if, for example, and women have also even internalized this conceptualized role of what a good woman, in quotes, should be, for you to be a good woman. So, and if you're not a good woman, then you cost the violence that has been visited upon you. So the society have even come to accept this, and that is where we have a problem. That in addressing those root causes, we'll have to look at what are the drivers, what are the push and pull factors. The drivers include gender discrimination, it includes inequalities, and it includes the social norms, sex stereotypes that have permeated every sphere of life. How is a woman seen as a full citizen in a democratic state, Nigeria, in a constitutional democracy we run? If they are, how come that we have the representation of women we have? The percent is less than 10. How come that they are not big players or gladiators, political gladiators? How come they are not the gladiators when it comes to business? How come that? So the society itself treats a woman and the girl child as a mini person. And it takes 9 lives to survive womanhood, being a woman. You're lucky if you survive not being aborted because you're a female, and there are texts that proves that. And then if you're born, you're lucky if you're not rejected because you're a woman at birth, and then someone abandons paying hospital bill, or even they are buried alive, as we know in some countries. If they survive that, what about female circumcision? What about female genital mutilation? If they pass that, what about early marriage? Would they come the early and forced marriage? And if they get into that, and then they get into the marriage, then the battery continues, and then they will have children. They're not able to even have reproductive self-determination. And it goes on and on. So it follows them from cradle to grave. And after that, so it is so deeply rooted in the society that we have. And I believe it's all part of the gendered nature of even domestic violence. Everybody's in agreement that it disproportionately affects women, just like when you look at the issue of trafficking. And so it is disproportionately affects women. And it has to also do with their gender and gender construction. And it varies from society to society. Another society can treat a woman better because it's cultural things. They are determined by culture, by environmental determinants. And there is also the one that when people watch, and when children watch their mothers being beaten, and then over time, either some of them will like violence, some of them will detest violence completely, and some will grow up to continue that cycle of violence. So what do we do with these institutions that continue to reinforce and reproduce this kind of stereotypes that leads to violence against women and girls? That's what we have to tackle. And I'm telling you, even though culture is not static, when it comes to the culture of violence, it is like rigid. It's like becoming, it's no longer fluid. It's no longer something you say, it changes with the people. So if you look at cultures that women have suffered widowhood practices, for example, it is still there. The disinheritance of widows is still there. Despite the constitutional provisions that prohibit discrimination, the reality, the de facto, is different from de jure. And why is there a gulf between de jure and de facto? And that's where you come to this, that yes, we need to address the root causes. And part of it is part of the work civil society have been doing. When I look at the cases, and there are new forms of violence that are also emerging, some because of the cyberspace that people use, some also, and then it's increasing, and we have all dimensions modeled up with the traditional violence against women. So are we fighting it as the law is trying to catch up with criminalization of certain cyber, like whether cyber sex, whether cyber stalking, and all those cyber bullying? They're trying to do that. These are new phenomena. And there are also the traditional ones that nobody is talking about. If a woman, for example, so when a woman is in fact, there are so many proverbs that describes that a woman should be seen, it should be not heard. And then, of course, if you try to be heard, that means you're trying to force yourself in a space where you're not supposed to be, or where they don't think you belong. You shouldn't be in the public space. What are you doing out there? We had a rape case once. The father wanted it, the girl was gang raped, and she was 17. And the anger of the father in trying to withdraw the case was that what was she doing there in that boy's house? And they were their schoolmates. And then she called and said, we needed this. And then she innocently went. She didn't know that she would be gang raped. But then because of those prejudice, because of those things, he ought to be cooking in the house. What were you doing there? The same way, if anybody who is raped, why were you wearing that mini skirt? You people are the ones showing all the cleavages. And I tell you, we've seen 3-month-old babies raped. At Tama sexual assault referral, we receive cases of incest, a father even sexually assaulting three minors, children that are minors. We just had a case that was exposed of a pastor who forced the daughter to have abortion 3 times, had been sleeping with her. So it's not about what you're wearing, but people justify it. So can we now say that indecent dressing is at the root causes of violence against women or domestic violence? I would say no. And these are places where you have to make the fine distinction and be careful about what we send and about messages we send. Because I've seen this even from some women who want to call themselves even activists, and who are also in a position of authority. They always, like, we had one case recently and they said, oh no, your husband is begging you now, you have to accept it. After all, a man is not supposed to beg a woman. Meanwhile, this is the man who has battered the wife. And you feel that he will just turn around and say, please forgive me. And then other women, they want you to forgive him, because according to culture, a man is not supposed to beg. And if the man shows some crocodile tears, oh no, this must be a nice man. And everybody is pressurizing her, not knowing what she goes through. They wouldn't even let you make decision for yourself. So these are the problem. The problem also includes even women. You hear about the Umada in Igbo land. So it's no longer just that the men are the perpetrators of violence. It's not just like black and white or, it's also that women are part of that system. And how come? Because also they've conceptualized their role as custodian of culture. And they have been arrogated some power by that patriarchal system. And they feel empowered and emboldened to begin to do the same thing on their fellow women. Please, what about the housemaid, house help phenomenon? That's a big domestic violence. Who perpetrates that? You find that 95% of the cases, if I don't say 99, are perpetrated by women. And it's for the psychiatrists to tell us. Is it because that women are themselves oppressed, violated, abused, that they turn around to abuse their housemaid? Or is it because of insecurity? because as the UN Special Rapporteur, I go to certain countries in Gulf state, they won't even allow the maid. They call it the maid. And these people are foreigners. They bring from even Filipinos, people from Africa and so many places. They will say, no, you can't take your shower for 2 months. The woman will be eating from the toilet. I once was doing a mission in Philippines, and I received over 46 domestic workers that returned from Gulf states. And if they talk about horrendous abuses they suffered at the hands of their madam. By the way, the majority, those who traffic people are also women. So what is at the root causes of this? Why then are also women and the female gender part of this? This may require more than this, but I just think what we are doing today is a useful beginning. It will be very important to do even further research on this issue of root causes. It will be very important to begin to follow up certain cases that will explain, that will enable us to understand the mindset of the perpetrators. Because as we're talking about the root causes, maybe a perpetrator ought to also be part of the audience, not just a victim. A perpetrator who can tell us what is in their mind. Because for some, you didn't get my food early. Oh, it's your role. They don't care whether you're sick or ill. In fact, I had one woman who gave birth a day after she was cooking in the kitchen. And the man traveled, and they were in the United States of America, and they traveled there to have a baby. But the man said, you have to make my meal. And she was frying plantain. And when she told me, and I said, you know, with the dizziness a woman feels after giving birth, you could have just, you could just burn yourself and even faint and die. But because the man already feels that it's her place to be that cook, and it just doesn't matter. If we have a system where we don't have help, then you do your work. So we need to really revisit, have a very robust discussion around this. It's a discussion whose time has come. And this is just the beginning. And I know we can go on and talk about this. And I want to just end by saying, we know we have epidemic upon this pandemic. We know people can come up with any justification. These are becoming myths. Oh, my food was not ready. Oh, she's very saucy. Oh, she doesn't respect me. Because finally, in the one case I'm talking about, how did I know about the case? Then the man said, oh, after 3 months, she had given birth. He said, you will return back to your parents. You're not respecting me enough. Oh, she's not respecting me. She talks back at me. So were women ever raised or men ever raised to see women as partners or their equals? The answer will be no. So we advise people, even in this COVID time, please engage yourself, avoid altercation, walk away from places and in the face of provocation, keep away from all dangerous objects and domestic appliances, report and present cases use hotlines, try to hide yourself, lock yourself in a room, don't respond, don't do this, don't do that. But what about the law itself? Our law is not fair on a woman. I'm a professor of law and I teach also criminal law. Take the defense of provocation, for example. That defense does not work for a woman. Even a woman who has suffered battery. A battered woman syndrome is been taken in some jurisdiction. They take evidence around that, including how they will react. And when women commit homicide, it could be the tipping point, could be just a little thing, because women don't respond to anger the same way men do. And many men have killed their wives because they say they caught them in compromising situation, or they caught them having sex with another. A woman may not react in that way. And the man will be completely, of course, provocation when it appears at the peak of crisis. Oh, he did that at the peak of crisis. It becomes a sustainable defense for them. But a woman's anger doesn't work the same way. She will have been emotionally battered over time. Before she would do, it will just be like a glass. A little tip will just trip it and trigger it to the point that she can react. And then something happens and everybody turn around to blame her. And nobody wants to understand the psychology or what has happened. What about the rape itself? A woman is seen as a liar. It depends on your status. To even be believed that you're telling this, what you're saying is correct, and you don't want to damage that man. Oh, that guy is a musician. He's a top one going. Some people have hired you to come and blackmail him. We've seen that even in civilized society. Why must it be that? A judge said in Canada in one case, he said, look, it depends on who you are. In order to accuse another of rape to be believed, If I'm a professor of law and say that this person have, say, oh, that woman, she's a professor. No, she's likely to have suffered that. Another person come and accuse the president of a country. Then nobody, nobody. They will even tell you, are you not lucky if the president had even approached you or forced sex on you? I mean, so it has to, in bottom line is that there is a lot that our culture have to do with this, and social norms. Yes, you can tell people to refrain from exchange of word or from arguing in the heat of passion or provocation and to walk away from all those places. And it's always about a woman, a woman, a woman. Be responsible, train your children well. Oh, that woman did not bring up the children well. Everything. But it takes two, and men must take responsibility, and including the perpetrators of violence. They must be held accountable. It must be zero tolerance and no justification for violence, except when people have to because of their mental state. Even drug, if you're the one who have just taken the drug yourself, it shouldn't exonerate you. Anyway, that's why they say guilty, but on ground of insanity, the conviction, you may be sentenced to an institution. It doesn't exonerate the person. So we just have to continue this conversation. That's what I want to end with, and to commend FIDA and to say our job is far from being done. And in this, our environment, there is huge, huge, huge problem. And every day we are just swarmed with these cases, and we're wondering, when do we see an end to this? When do we begin to have a responsive system that can deal with this in a way that can inspire confidence and give us hope that I'm getting tired. I've done this work for nearly 3 decades. I can't live my life like this, at 12 midnight every day. And it's because systems are not working. If four policemen were sent to a woman to rescue a woman, and what did they go there to do? They saw the husband beating her right in front of them. The woman is screaming for their attention. And they asked the woman said, the man is forcing sex on me and she has injured me. She's now an incontinent. And what did they say? They said, that's why he married you. And then she told them she has forced me to do abortion 7 times. They said it's called unwanted pregnancy. And you're talking about police officers. And it's not the first time. So where do we start? Because their mindset is patriarchal system. They've internalized it. So for you, whatever you're talking about, they even blamed her. Why did you take to Facebook? So why did you tell the world what you're suffering? So she must die in silence. So it's only because now people are breaking the silence. And that's why we're talking about this. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll stop here. And I'm sorry I've taken more time than I thought I would take.
Wow. Thank you so much, Prof. Prof. Joy Ezelo, our learned Dean of Law, University of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your thought-provoking presentation. I mean, it's as if you should actually go on because you've raised so many pertinent issues. You've asked us so many questions, and we need to just keep interrogating our thoughts. We need to keep challenging all those social norms and the culture that are so barbaric, and you have been able to just take us through even your own personal experiences during this pandemic with your work with the beautiful organization that you serve with, the WACO and the TAMA. It's so heartwarming that we all have our hands on the table, working so hard to continue with this conversation. Thank you so much, Ma. I will make a little attempt again just to bring out some of the high points of your presentation and your thought-provoking, speech to us. We're looking at the root causes and, of course, determining that we need to find creative solutions. We're not just going to be talking about it, but we also need to begin to look at creative solutions to this problem because it is what it is. It's a pandemic on its own. So you have challenged us, you've charged us this evening. And of course, you've spoken from your experience during this pandemic that you've had to treat over 200 cases. This is like comparing the records even with FIDA Lagos, for instance. So it's really enormous. The work is a lot, and we need to just keep up with this. We must speak out, because there are so many pertinent questions, because a woman is seen. How is a woman seen? Is a woman seen as a full citizen? We need to challenge the status quo. We need to challenge all those social norms and the obnoxious cultural practices. And you asked us again that we need to look at all those ways that we have been living, the ways of life. We need to ask those personal questions on our own way of life. Why are women harming women? Why are women at the center of human trafficking? Why are women at the center of domestic violence against helps and housemaids and housekeepers and those people who will feel they are underprivileged? And then why are we the one also perpetrating that? You know, you've called for further research as well as for us to look at how we can do aggressive follow-up of some of the cases that we have seen in order for us to unravel the root causes of some of these cases. You have called that, yes, we must continue to preach that it must be zero tolerance for domestic violence and sexual assaults. And then you've charged us that this conversation is not ending here. This is not another talk shop. The conversation must continue. We thank you so much, Prof. We're really glad to have you. Thank you so much, ma. Now, we'll quickly move on to call Mrs. Titilola Vivo Adeni. You're welcome, ma. Titilola Vivo Adeni has been waiting as well. Mrs. Adeni, are you there? We're ready to take you on board now. Thank you. I think Mrs. Adeni is having some technical problems. If you can hear me, Mrs. Adeni, can you please type? Just let's know what's going on with you in the chat box. Okay, I can't get through to her. We're going to keep trying. But at this juncture, let me just bring in our honorable justices for them to give us their brief remarks. I don't know if our grand patron is here. Honorable Justice Jumoke Pedro. My Lord, I don't know if you're here. I have been looking for you. If you're here, can you please signify, raise your hand, drop us a chat? I've actually been looking for you because I can see my Lord, Honorable Justice Sherifat Sholebo. Okay, let me call on my Honorable Justice Sherifat Sholebo for our own remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I adopted the protocol already laid down. I especially acknowledge the presence of the First Lady, Dr. Mrs. Sanwo-Olu. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
hello?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
we can hear
I
you.
especially will acknowledge the presence of the Dr. Sanwo-Olu, Dr. Mrs. Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu at this program. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Prof and Dr. Sheikh had said so much, and they have raised so many issues. And like Dr. Sheikh actually ended, what do we do now? I believe we just must look at how to some extent, prevent the occurrence or the happenings of these sexual offenses. Sexual offense or violence had been explained or defined by Dr. Sheikh very clearly. And Lagos State law, the protection against domestic violence law of Lagos State is very, very clear on domestic violence. What exactly is domestic violence? It is between persons involved in domestic relationship. Domestic relationship may not be spousal. It could also be even between friends sharing residence. So it could happen for, not necessarily within the house, but majorly within the house. And that's why it goes beyond husband and wife, parents and children. It could also be between employers, as this, the owners of the house, and their employees, which in most cases are probably the cooks, the maids, and all that. But from the issues identified, I think if I remember clearly, Prof said something about women. Why are women injuring ourselves? From practical experiences, what I have found out is that I think she also raised the issue of lack of security. Most times we lack confidence. We're economically dependent on our spouses. So that also could explain why we injure ourselves. We are built up so much anger. And of course, who can we inflict it on? Those who are less privileged or disadvantaged to us. Mostly our children, our mates, and of course, maybe some other friends or co-occupiers. With regards to trafficking, what I've also realized is that women are those that are trafficked. And from what I've seen in a lot of films in recent times, because of this pandemic, I realized that once they are trafficked, after they have paid off their fees or whatever charges, they graduate to being, in quotes, employers of labor, of sex workers. So that also explains that is basically, that question could be answered with the fact that it is a matter of previous experiences. Whatever we experience while growing up or in relationships affects us, and of course, explains the way we behave. And I want to quickly add something to this issue of previous experiences. I had a case in court. A young man was arrested somewhere at a court garage for rape. Of course, he came to court and admitted he raped a particular young boy. And I asked him why. He explained to me that while growing up somewhere in Asaba, the father was a driver. So he lived in the premises of the father's employees. And at the end of the day, the next door neighbor, who was a cook, would usually give him food to eat. And after a while would invite him in. And what was he doing to him? The man usually would have anal sex with him. So that, according to him, he told me he never knew it was wrong. He knew at a point the father got to know. That was why he was sent to Lagos. He had nowhere to stay. And of course, he became a conductor to Danfo drivers. And at the end of the close of day, he would sleep at the garage in any available Danfo, whatever that was available. Because he was used to regular sex through the anus, he would look for a small boy, give 200 maximum according to 500, and say, come and take money to eat. Invite them inside the Danfo, and of course, rape them. He never knew it's called rape, because that was what he experienced at a very tender age while growing up in Asaba. Until his arrest, according to him, he never knew. Of course, he ended up in jail. With regards to even domestic violence, I had also a case of a pregnant lady who got newly married, came to the court to complain. And when I issued interim protection order, she told me she didn't want it served. I said, why? Said, oh, my father-in-law is a bully. When he speaks, my mother-in-law dare not speak. My father is dead, and my mother is so scared of him that he will not say anything. I wonder who the person could be. Of course, he's a man of military background. That does not explain to you. That's not that I'm saying that all military men are actually bullies, but this explains why the husband turned out the way he was. The young man could not understand why his wife would talk back. And that was always a cause of their problem. Unfortunately, the wife grew up in a house where when the father speaks, sought the mother's opinion. So these are contradictions in their upbringing. So with all this, and from practical experience, another thing is that I think it has also been pointed out by the two speakers, the issue of cultural beliefs, traditional, social, and religious beliefs. I am a Muslim, and I'm glad we have a Islamic spiritual father here. There's a misconception about a provision in the Quran that says that a man can discipline the wife. I understood what it says, but I don't want to interpret it. I would want the Imam to try and explain that. A lot of times, a lot of Muslim men try to beat up their wife because they believe erroneously that they are enjoined to discipline their wife by beating when they misbehave. That I can say about religious belief. About cultural, like has been pointed out by the psychiatrists, it's difficult in a male-dominated society for a lot of our men to understand why you will refuse sex, or when they talk, you talk back, or you cannot follow simple instruction. Basically, it's because they are used to dominating, they are used to being listened to, and they are used to girls carrying out their instruction without any questioning. And that's also a problem. And that also explains why we have some local leaders like Bales. I have had cases from areas like Ekpotun, Baja, where the leaders, the community leader, I think they call them Bale, would ask the woman, for going to report to the society, to the police, leave this community. I have had cases of policemen years back, although that's about 10 years back before the Child Rights Law. I don't know now what the situation is. We have male policemen. Cases will be reported at the station, and at the end of the day, the male officers will keep the girls behind the counter. And very late at night, will now say, come on, come and do oral sex, or come and do regular sex. And when the girls report back to the court, the excuse is that the man said, what is the big deal? After all, your hymen have been broken. Job has to be. Let's do what we have to do. And in some cases, the officers actually have their way. And that also affects the issue of reportage. You live in a community, you don't have money to relocate, and you know that your Bali had said, oh, they have begged you, accept the apology and move on. Or you go to the police station and they say, give us money, mobilize us, and you don't have money to mobilize officers, and nothing will be done. You go back to the society, the community where you have been humiliated, only to now be booed. That turn there, where what did you come back with? Because the officers will not move unless they are mobilized. These are some of the problems that are affecting this, in quote, pandemic, because rape is getting worldwide. It is pandemic, and honestly, it is a very serious issue. With this pandemic, COVID-19, there no doubt there's upsurge in domestic violence between couples, between parents. Of course, that has to do with poverty. If you look at the statistics of those who are reporting, it's not between the middle class or the upper class. It's between the lower classes of persons. And it's because they have no money, no income, no food at all. The man has not been making money. The woman too has no money. And part of the problem is that they rarely stay together at home during the daytime. So they are not used to living together. So it is strange to them, all of them being inside, talking at the same time. And apart from that, part of the problems with this class of persons is also the fact that there's even no light. Electricity is not working. I have been on generator for 48 hours. So you cannot imagine if there's no money to buy fuel, what happens? And that's the experience of people within this class. No generator, no television, no light, no food, no water. And to make matter worse, at this period, the rains are here. There's also flooding. So there are too many reasons for people to be irritated, highly irritated. And of course, that explains the aggression, even within the families. So poverty has to do with it. And with due respect, government not being alive to their responsibilities is also part of the problem. Also, the doctor, I think, raised the issue of mentally deranged lady or person who killed the baby. It is a pity. But I'm sure once it gets to court, the lawyer will raise the issue of the defense of insanity. And of course, the law will take its course. The prof also raised the issue of defense of provocation. With due respect, Prof, I don't think there is any discrimination when it comes to provocation. The law has to be interpreted fairly. In the criminal law, there's no division between genders, whether this would avail male person or not. And of course, by virtue of Section 42 of the Constitution, I don't think a judge would look at such defense and start ascribing whether you are male or female. It would have to be applied generally across the board. I also support the submission on the issue of dressing. Dressing has nothing to do with this particular myth going on. Oh, it's because she wore spaghetti or sleeveless or mini. When we were young, up till age 18, 19, I wore mini. We even used to call one micro mini. Nobody abused us. Nobody accosted us. Nobody bullied us. In this Lagos, we will walk from our homes straight to Marina. There used to be ports by that Marina in Lagos State. And there were benches. And we would stay there, enjoy our time with our friends, and go back home. Even we go picnicking, love garden, or things like that. But I don't know. I wasn't aware of what they call rape at that time. But I think as we progress, maybe like the believers would say, we're approaching end time, things are getting worse. How do you explain the rape of a 2-month-old baby? I had sat over the case of a 2-month-old, few days baby that was penetrated by a man who was supposed to be an uncle. The man went to visit the family, and the woman just said, "Uncle, let me get to the kitchen and get you something to eat." All she heard was this scream, a terrible scream from the child, ran out of the kitchen and found blood on her daughter. At the time they presented the child in court, the anus had been pierced, sorry, the vagina had passed through the, I don't know what they call it, the area of the anus, like you have this VVF. I don't know what became of the child because I was posted out after I took the arraignment of the man. So I have series of cases of 7, 8-year-old girls who were repeatedly raped by one man or the other at different times and regularly too. These are girls who had just nothing on their chest beyond nipples. They have no shape. With all humility, please. Some of them are not even beautiful. So I honestly could not understand the attraction. And like the prof said, we need to investigate. Ask these pedophiles, ask the rapists, why do you do what you are doing? The researchers need to do that. Because a lot of times I have a headache when I handle children. And I found out that this is the situation. Anyway, yes, so there's so much to say in response to some of the things that have been said, but no doubt the issue of power, dominance has to do with the situation. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, my Lord. We're so grateful. I mean, this perspective is just making it more interesting as to how we can key into this conversation and what we can do, one person at a time. Thank you so much for those great insights and the practical examples you've given. There's so much work to do, Ma. Thank you for the charge. We're grateful. Thank you, Ma.